Okay, let's go from Parak Ches Mishnah Hay, the 8th Parak, the 5th Mishnah. Ein paischin la'ani begairin. You can't give less to a poor person who comes to your granary when you're finishing processing your crops. Then a significant amount, which is enough for. So it depends on what it is. If it's michatzi kav chitim, if it's wheat, you have to give him half a kav.
You thought that's enough for 2 meals, right?
I thought that wasn't right. The kavs, meaning because at the end of the Mishnah we're going to say other things. You have to give him enough that you can get the cash value of 2 meals, right? So the kavs iron, barley is a little bit less filling. So the first Tannaim says you have to give him twice as much. You have to give him a full kav. Rameir Amar no, chatzi kav, barley and wheat, they're both the same. Both of them you give him half a kav. Barley might be lesser quality, I guess, but he doesn't think you'd eat that much more of it if you're going to eat. Barley bread might not be as good as wheat bread, but you're not going to eat much more. The kav v'chatzi kusmin, but spelt, you give him a kav and a half. That seems everyone agrees to. I guess that's clearly less filling. Which the kav gregoris, if you're going to give him dried figs, he needs a kav of those. Omana dvela, if you made them into a cake, so they're not individuals anymore. They're now a solid mass. So you don't measure those by volume anymore. You measure them by weight. So you give him a mana. Rabbi Kiva Amar Pras. Rabbi Kiva says half of a mana. Chatzi lug yain. You'd give him a half a lug of wine, which is essentially 2 cups. Rabbi Kiva Amar Revius. Rabbi Kiva says only 1 cup of wine. Revius shemen. You'd give him a cup of wine. Rabbi Kiva Amar Shminis. Rabbi Kiva says half of that. You give him half a cup of wine, an eighth of a lug. For charcoal appears other fruits. Amar Abishal says, Kadeshi Yamachar, enough that he could sell them. V'yikach mehem mazon shtei sudas, and buy food for 2 meals. Mishnah Vav. Midazu Amura, these amounts are said, but Kohanim will be Yisraelim. It doesn't matter if you're giving Truma, you're giving Meiser, you're giving Meiser Ani. If you're giving someone fruit, you should give them this minimum amount. Hayam Matzil. For Truma, for Meiser Ani, for whatever you'd be giving out. Hayam Matzil. Let's say you're saving it for somebody. You have a friend who's not around, who's an Ani, or whatever, a Levi, someone you want to save it for. So then, Neitel Mechsa v'Neisen Mechsa. You could save half of the total Meisers you have to give out, to give to the people you want, and the other half you should give to the people that come at the time when you're finishing up dealing with your produce. You should give it to them. What about Hayaloi Davar Mu'at? Let's say you don't have enough to get to the amounts we said to give. 5 aniyim show up, and I only have 1 kav. The Mishnah said before I'm supposed to give each one half a kav. I can't do that. I don't have enough. So then, Neisin Lefneim, you say, here, this is all I have. And they'll split it amongst themselves. That way, I avoid giving them an insignificant amount, but obviously it's going to end up the same way because there's no. I don't have anything more. I'm not obligated to give of my own stuff in order to give them larger portions. Okay, Mishnah Zayin.
Sounds like advice, like if some ani comes to your door or some fundraiser comes to your door, but you've already committed everything. You should give them something.
Yeah, give them something. Well, that might be true, but this is.
This is different.
Right. This is just saying, right, you shouldn't give anyone. This is like there's a minimum amount of what's a respectable amount to give somebody. So you should give everyone a respectable amount. But if you don't have enough to give everyone a respectable amount, you don't have to go take from your own money to give them more. You say, here, this is all I have. You guys work it out.
Work it out. Yeah. Sure.
Okay. Mishnah Zayin. You have a poor person who's traveling through town, so we don't have an obligation to support him long term, but we have to help him out for today. So you have to give him mikikar b'pundin. You have to give him a loaf of bread that would cost a coin called a pundin. Me'arba sayim b'sela, when you can get 4 sa of wheat for a sela, which comes out to essentially the same ratio as before, which is 1/24 of a sa. It's a half. Will come up to half a kav per puntin. Then there's going to be some inconsistency because the baker is, if he's buying wheat at a certain price, he's going to sell bread at a higher price, obviously, because he needs to make a profit. So it comes out to 6 bayim basically of bread, 6 egg sizes of bread in this loaf. So you have to give him a loaf of that. Not a lot of bread, but basically it's enough food for 2 meals. Lun, if he stays overnight in town, Nice and light parnassus lila. You need to give him what he needs to sleep. You need to give him a place to sleep. You can't just leave him on the streets. Shavas. If he spends Shabbos in your town, then nice and mazain shalish sudes. Then you have to give him food for the 3 meals of Shabbos. Okay, and then on the flip side, mishi ishlei mazin shtei sudes. Somebody who has enough food for today, he has food for 2 meals. Lo yitom in a tamchi, he shouldn't take from the tamchi, which is essentially the soup kitchen, which is designed for people that don't have their own food to eat. If you have your own food, you shouldn't go there. If you have mazin arbas or sudas, if you have enough food for 14 meals, meaning you have enough money to get through the next week, lo yitom in a kupa, you shouldn't take from the kupa, which is every Friday they would distribute stucca for the coming week. So if you have enough money for next week, so don't take stucca this week. You'll worry about it next week. Hopefully, then you'll have money. And a side din, once we mentioned this kupa, this charity collection on Fridays, it would be collected with 2 people because we don't want there to be any suspicion that maybe the person collecting the money is keeping it for himself. So we have 2 people when they're collecting, so they kind of keep an eye on each other. And when you're distributing it, you need 3, because then it's the distributor's judgment of how much money to give to each person. So it's a little bit like a din Torah of deciding who gets what money. So we want 3 people to make these kind of monetary decisions. Okay, let's stop over here.